So I wanted to talk more about how I became more right wing. Just to show people that we all do come from different backgrounds, different experiences, and we're all able to change our mind. And just because somebody was a liberal or more left wing in the past does not mean it is impossible to change their opinion, to change the way they think. Once a liberal, not always a liberal. Most kids are socialistic, more left wing, and until they grow up, live in the real world, have an actual job, then they become more right wing. So, I kind of wanted to tell you my experience and my journey, I guess, and how I became the way I am now, or how I think the way I do now. But initially, when I was 18 or a little bit younger, I started watching like a lot of conspiracies and stuff online, right? And yes, this didn't do a lot for me, but it did get me to start questioning things, right? It did get me to look at government, at the news differently, right? A little more apprehensively, more skeptically, right? And over time, I eventually put that to the wayside, and then I moved more into skepticism and atheism, right? So I kind of rejected a lot of those older conspiracies, took a few things from it that I liked in a sense, a few I guess lessons you could say I learned from it and brought it with me. And then I became more atheistic. I started reading and watching a lot of Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, absorbing a lot of their books, watching their debates, and generally falling in line with that more often. And, I still didn't really consider myself a liberal or a conservative or anything like that at that point. I was just more focused on religion and belief and logic and argumentation and skepticism, and I was more interested in this and Islam. So I was still always against Islam even at that point, because when I take on a belief or I start to think a certain way, I like to be consistent. So I as soon as I became an atheist, I wasn't going to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to attack Christians. No, it's like I'm going to be consistent and be like, okay, the Islam is bad too. And then the more you look into Islam, you're like, oh fuck, this is a lot fucking worse. And then you start to realize, okay, maybe not all religions are just as bad. And then being introduced to other people later on, then I started to get even more nuanced perspective on religions and stuff. So that I was watching that for a long time. Then after that, I started becoming a little bit more left wing, because I was watching the Bill Maher show and the Daily Show and the Colbert Report all the time. I'd watch it almost every day, when it was on. And these are the shows that make people more left wing. These are shows that are propagandizing our young, because when I was that age, and a lot of people I knew, nobody watched the news or anything like that. And the people who were more politically active in a sense were people like me that would get their news from the Daily Show, from the Bill Maher show and stuff, right? So they think they are informed, but really they are not. They're just being shown constant negative images of right-wingers, conservative Republicans, and being shown liberals in a good light. So even if you don't identify necessarily as a liberal, conservative, or anything like that, you're automatically going to have that perception. And so I was like that for a little while until I cut my cable loose, right? And then I started just using the internet more, right? So I started streaming more and using YouTube. And that is probably what had one of the largest impacts, because I started watching people like Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan, is kind of the middle of the fence there, but he would often have people that were on the right on his show, and they would actually be able to explain their positions within 2 to 3 hours, right? Like, all we see in the media, in the Daily Show, is these little tidbits, these little tiny interviews where they edit and cut to make the person look like an idiot. But with the Joe Rogan show and that platform, people were able to talk for hours to really let loose and say what they really believe without being smeared and like insulted and all this shit. So watching that helped me become more right-wing, more politically involved, more understanding of what's really going on. And him introducing people like, you know, Stéphane Molyneux to me, like, for him, me personally, he has probably had one of the biggest impacts on the way that I think. You know, we are very similar in a lot of ways. Like we're both atheist, but we both, you know, still more or less respect Christianity to some extent, because, you know, there has been a huge change in that within atheism within the past couple of years since the introduction of Jordan Peterson. But even before Jordan Peterson was saying what he's saying, Stéphane Molyneux was saying all of this, because he understands that what the socialist and the leftists did is they attacked religion, destroyed it, but they didn't replace it with anything good or better. So what are people going to be left with? They're going to be nihilists, moral relativists, and compared to replacing with nothing, Christianity is pretty good, and it has a lot of things that are going to help society move forward and continue and flourish. So, you know, my perspectives have definitely got more nuance, but really it comes down to cutting the cable and getting rid of the propaganda and, you know, trying to find things that you want, or like, you know, looking for things on YouTube and stuff and looking at these people's perspectives, because this is where you're going to be getting like real news. You know, like people have an issue when I say that, but it's like the mainstream media, they'll tell you some factual things, don't get me wrong, but the problem is they omit a lot. So you have a certain picture in your mind being formed by them, because they're not giving you half of the fucking picture. Like I said, the Daily Show, they make Republicans look really fucking stupid, but they never attack Democrats and the stupid shit that they say and the gaffes that they make all the fucking time. So what are you left to believe? Oh, the Democrats are smart and intellectual, they know what's going on, and the Republicans are a bunch of dum-dums, right? So anybody can be changed. They just have to kind of move away from the mainstream media as much as possible and disconnect, and that will kind of like restabilize people to like start to think logically again, because a lot of the times a lot of people, they don't know how they think on an issue until they're like, okay, I'm gonna wait until this person says something about this, then I'm going to know if this is good or bad. I'm going to wait for my favorite actor to say I am against or for this, and if they do, then I'm for it or I'm against it. So, you know, we can change minds, and we got to try to understand where people are coming from, where they are on that particular journey, right? And what could potentially help them open their eyes, right? Because if I was from 18, right, and then you told me all the things I knew or know now, then I would be like, whoa, this is a little bit crazy. You're going a little bit hardcore. But, you know, you got to kind of slowly introduce these things to people. And I think the best way for people often to learn is by themselves, because we're stubborn. You know, we are very fucking stubborn people, or humans in general, and it's like we don't want to learn until we realize it ourselves or something. We don't want somebody else to tell us what the truth is. We want to just see and experience what it is for ourselves. And sadly enough, that is the case for most people. Some people can see and be like, okay, let's avoid this. Let's not go through the pain, because I've already seen other people go through it. I don't want to experience that. But a lot of us just need to feel the hurt, right? And this, you can kind of see this still in Sweden. It's still really good. The numbers that they got, they are still increasing, but there's still a large subset of their population that still needs to feel more pain. They need to see more cars lined up in Sweden, lit on fire. Like I don't know how many cars. They're like 2 weeks in a row. There's like 20, and then 2 weeks later, a bunch of these kids or people, they lit up and they're like 10 or 15, right? So until it gets worse for these people, they're not going to wake up. They have to fucking do it this way. It's unfortunate. If they were able to cut off the cable, if they were able to just look up some alternative media, then we could avoid a lot of this heartache in violence that's going to be happening in the future, because that is what is awaiting us. Okay, just constantly bringing people in like this and not doing anything to address the grievances of the native population of the country is going to breed violence. It's not a threat. I'm not making this a threat or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, this is how things work out, right? Keep ignoring people. They're going to take things into their own hands. And, if the media wasn't doing this, wasn't sending all this propaganda, then a lot of lives, a lot of, misery could be avoided. But, that is going to take, like I said, cutting the cable. And you'd be surprised if people just did that, there would be so many more of us awake. But cable news, all this shit still has a lot of power. And if it wasn't for Canada and our communist country supporting our media, so many more of us would be woken up. But we have a state run fucking media that takes our fucking money, and everybody, a lot of Canadians trust it. They look at it, they're like, oh, it's our broadcasting. They're doing this for us. But no, they're poisoning your mind. They're actively working against you and making you vote and like things that are not in your interest. This is why they are the enemy of the people. But this is all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.